Saving America one entrepreneur at a time, it's the Biz Rap Podcast with your host, Michael Manahan. The show that celebrates small business and entrepreneurs, it's Biz Rap Radio with your host, small businessman, educator, and author, Michael Manahan. And welcome to another edition of Biz Rap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan, and thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited. Got a great show lined up for you. If you've not listened to us before, we are the show that is all about small business and entrepreneurs. That's right. We are the champions of the small business people in America. You may not know this, but it is really the small businesses and the entrepreneurs that are the drivers of our economy. Most new jobs, as we pull out of the recession, are created by small businesses. Most people in America work for a small business. And one of the things that really differentiates us from many countries in the world is that entrepreneurial spirit, that kind of idea that you can go out there, start your business, and be a business person. Anyways, Biz Rap Radio, your host, Michael Manahan. And I'm excited today because I've got a gentleman on the line with us. He is the author of a book. It's called Reaching the Finish Line. His name is Kallen Diggs. Kallen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
Now, you say here that you have empowered 2,000 plus people to reach the finish line. What does that mean, reaching the finish line?
Yes, so since the Great Recession, I've helped 2,000 people reach the finish line. And some people didn't have high school diploma. Some people didn't have a college degree. Or some people graduated from college, but they wanted to change their major, but they didn't want to go back to school. So basically, I've helped over 2,000 people reach the finish line in their careers. Because usually their career is the focal point of someone's life. So, you know, if you could help someone out in their career, then it's also going to enhance other areas in that person's life.
Well, that's an interesting point because I'm an educator. I teach university. I teach accounting and finance at Cal State Dominguez Hills. In addition to doing my radio show, and of course being an independent business consultant and helping small businesses with everything from financial strategy to raising capital. But one of the things that frustrates me is this kind of concept that a lot of business people have, that in order to get a certain position, you have to have some sort of a degree. And I'm sure there's many, many talented people out there in this country that for whatever reason didn't get their degree. Perhaps they had to go to work, perhaps they had families to take care of, perhaps they had financial reasons. But they're certainly very capable people. And so I guess really does it make that much of a difference?
Well, that's a great question. I think it really depends on what I guess I'm trying to say is I think it's important for that person to consider if there's a high demand for that particular career. So if we look at, let's say, the IT industry, we see that a lot of IT professionals are successful and are employed without college degrees because they have offered something like OpenCourseWare or services like Lynda.com where they can learn things like HTML, CSS, and other computer languages. But if we look at the medical industry, it's necessary because there's no health institution that's going to hire you as a doctor or a nurse unless you have the appropriate degree. So I think it really depends on the degree. If you're considering being a musician or artist or something like that in an arts major, then kind of skipping it may not be a bad idea. However, if you desire a career that falls within like science, engineering, and healthcare, then you'll definitely want to go to college.
Yeah, so part of it is, I guess, making a good choice in what you're going to do. But I'd like to focus this more on the entrepreneur because the people we're talking to, our audience, they're small business people, they're entrepreneurs, or they're people who want to get into business. And I'm sure there's lots of people listening to us out there, and maybe they're working for somebody else, and they're thinking, this working for somebody else really sucks. they got the boss coming in here. He takes off and plays golf and spends, every lunch hour drinking martinis, and I'm busting my butt making all the money around this place, and he's paying me chicken feed, and he's driving around in the $90,000 Mercedes Benz. But those people might be thinking, do I have the education needed to go out and start my small business? So what would be your advice to somebody who's in that situation?
Absolutely. So usually what I do is, usually most parents are telling their children, you have to go to college, or some parents will either insist their children, well, you have no choice, you're going to college whether you like it or not. Well, I think some good sound advice is for that college student to at least do their first 2 years of college. So let's say something like basically that allows them to do their general education courses, so their math, their science, psychology, all of that. And then I would advise that after their sophomore year, take a gap year. Take a gap year to allow you to be able to gain some contrast and perspective, to allow you to be able to decide what you really want to do in life. Because the problem is, Michael, is a lot of college students, they start off the freshman year in a particular major, let's say psychology, and then by the time they finish their freshman or sophomore year, they end up changing their major. And what the trend is now, it takes 6 years to get a bachelor's degree as opposed to 4 years. So I think a gap year is very important. A person can do a gap year before they go to college, or they can do a gap year maybe after the freshman or sophomore year. But a gap year is powerful, whether they do it abroad or whether they do it here within the country. One thing you can do is it can increase your customer service skills, how you deal with people, especially if you're doing it abroad. It definitely increase the skills of diversity and immigrant populations. And it also can increase your business skills. Studies have shown that people who do business abroad, or who have learned or studied abroad or worked abroad, are usually more successful than people who have never done it before. So I think that's powerful.
Yeah, I really like that idea, and as a professor, this really really resonates with me. I teach an entrepreneurial finance course, and clearly, and I have two types of students. I have students who basically went out of high school right into college, and this is an upper level course. So I'm typically teaching students in their last year. And so I get these students that have come right out of college into university, and then I get the student that maybe has been out in the workforce and is now coming back to school maybe 5 or even 10 years after leaving high school. And there's no question that the older students who have real-life experiences outside of the classroom are so much more well-rounded, so much more worldly in their thinking, and it's just kind of a general understanding that somebody who hasn't done that just for whatever reason doesn't have. I like the idea actually, I don't think we should let students into university when they're coming right out of high school. I think we should say, hey, you got 2 years and you got to go off before you can get into high school and do something. Go join the military for a couple of years, or go join the. Do we still have that thing called the Peace Corps or something, where you go and you volunteer and you help people, maybe in the United States, or you help people in other countries, and then you come back and all of a sudden you've got a whole inventory of life experiences that you can bring back into the classroom.
I'm glad you brought that up, Michael, because I think over the years they've actually expanded it. So if you want to go abroad, you do have the Peace Corps, and usually you would do assignments in developing countries. But if you want to stay here within the country, they do have things like AmeriCorps. They have things like Conservation Corps. If you're into agriculture, they have things like Farm Corps. So they have all these different types of programs, as you discussed, and where you can try different things depending on what you're interested in, and that's a great experience. Basically, usually these programs basically work with nonprofit organizations. So basically, it allows you to develop some professional experience, and as well as to put on your resume. It gives you some good references, and also it can help you develop some potential job opportunities once you finish these programs.
Okay, Kallen, that's great. We're speaking with Kallen Diggs, author, Reaching the Finish Line. Your host, Michael Manahan, BizRap Radio. We'll be back right after these messages. And welcome back to Biz Rap Radio. We are the show all about small business and entrepreneurs, but we're talking today to Kallen Diggs. He is the author of Reaching the Finish Line. Kallen claims to have empowered 2,000 plus people to reach their finish line, and he really talks about how you can succeed in business without spending years and thousands of dollars in school. And Kallen, thank you so much for sticking with us.
Thank you, Michael.
Now, if somebody is interested in your book, where can they get your book?
Absolutely. So they can go to www.reachingthefinishline.com. They can choose either to buy the e-version of the book, or they could buy in the paperback, which I autograph all the copies there. They can get that at reachingthefinishline.com. And they also can subscribe to my insider list, save up to 75%, what they don't want you to know. And I have a lot of other exclusive content available to subscribers and followers at reachingthefinishline.com. And what I want to do for you, Michael, for your listeners is until the 16th, I'll be giving away my ebook version of reachingthefinishline.com. They send me an email at Kallen@reachingthefinishline.com. I can show them how they can get that for free.
Wow, they can get it for free. That's fabulous. Wonderful. Now, so you've got other content on your website that a person could get if they also wanted. But I understand that you actually can do some personal one-on-one counseling with people, and can they also should they go to your website to find out about that service as well?
Absolutely. What I will advise them to do first is get the book, read it, see how it applies to you, because that's the basic level. And then once we have the consultation, we can get into more advanced strategies on how we can go from there.
Okay, that's fantastic. So, again, we're speaking with Kallen Diggs, author, Reaching the Finish Line. Go to reachingthefinishline.com. That's reachingthefinishline.com. And, one thing I'm always telling, because I'm constantly talking to entrepreneurs and business people, there's so much knowledge out there. There's so many people who can help you achieve what you're doing. You read about people who climb Mount Everest, and, one or two guys reach the top of Mount Everest, but what you don't realize that there is a whole team of people supporting them. There's porters, there's Sherpas, there's people who are at all the various camps on the route up to scaling Everest. And business is very much that way. If you want to be successful in business, very, very difficult to be a lone wolf. You need to work with and through other people, and part of it is expanding your network, people you know, but part of it is also accessing the fabulous resources that are out there that you can educate yourself, and you don't have to go back to school and pay $100,000 or $150,000 to get an MBA. Virtually everything you're ever going to learn at at school in an MBA, you can get online. From some particular resource, a lot of it in books, like the books that our guest today, Kallen Diggs, has, Reaching the Finish Line. So, Kallen, what other advice do you have for somebody who might be listening to the show today?
Absolutely. I think they have to decide, Michael, what are they absolutely passionate about. If they don't have any idea, that's why we talked about earlier, they should do a gap year, kind of get a feel of what they might like. Well, everyone has hobbies, so there is something that you do like to do. But the question is, can you see yourself being passionate about it on an ongoing basis? So once they figure that out, then they can go from there. Whether if they want to really help people in wellness, maybe be a doctor or maybe be a nurse, then college is going to be that route to them. If they want to be something like a musician, then perhaps you don't have to go to college. You can go to a lot of these tuition-free music programs like the Curtis Institute of Music or Yale University School of Music, and their programs are tuition-free. All you have to do is audition for it. So, again, find what you're passionate about and go from there.
Yeah, that's great advice for anybody if they're trying to choose a career path in life. I taught a communications class for some time, and part of that class was I would have students get up and give a 2 to 3 minutes a speech, basically. And they would always have difficulty choosing a topic. What am I going to talk about? And I'd say, find something that you're passionate about. What are you passionate about? Because people can typically talk about things that they're passionate about better than they can talk about things that they're not passionate about. And I remember having one young lady that worked for me. She says, "Professor, I've been searching my brain. I'm not passionate about anything." But I don't think that's normal. I think most people have a passion. I'm passionate about entrepreneurs and small business and the contribution that entrepreneurs make to our economy and to our general way of life. And I can talk about entrepreneurs and business forever. But that's a good advice. Whether you're planning on starting a business or whether you're just planning on refining and redeveloping your career, definitely try and identify where your passions are. And with the help of Kallen, you may be able to pursue the career that you're looking for without necessarily going and getting those academic credentials that other people have. Obviously, there's some things you have to have an academic credential. They're not going to let you, into the operating room at the local hospital with a scalpel in your hand, unless you've, gone to medical school. But a lot of other occupations, you really don't need to have a formal education. And I'll give you a perfect example of that because, I'm an accountant by training. I've been chief financial officer. You cannot work as an auditor unless you have your CPA. But I've known many very, very good accountants who did not have formalized education in accounting. They learned on the job. And as they learned, they got better and they got better at doing. And in fact, I worked with accountants who had no education whatsoever in accounting, who were better accountants than CPAs that I knew. So it's really kind of the thing. I think that you got to, as Kallen says, talk about your passions and pursue your passions, and you will be better off. Kallen, we got time for maybe one more thought from you, and then we're going to have to finish the interview and go on to the next part of our show. What other thoughts and ideas can you share with our audience today?
Absolutely. So, one tidbit is, if a person has graduated from high school, whether he's recently graduated or they've never gone to college yet, one great way that they can do is they can consider getting their bachelor's degree in 1 year. And they can do that through something called credit by examination. So these are CLEP courses or CLEP tests, BSTT tests, and basically it allows you to test out of various subjects. Now, the majors are not vast. The majors are much more limited. But if a person, let's just say, they're not sure yet, but they want to get started, let's say a liberal arts degree. Well, they can do these CLEP and DSST tests, get their liberal arts degree in 1 year, and at the same time, they'll pay less than $10,000 rather than worry about having thousands upon thousands of dollars in student loan debt. So that's one tidbit to keep in mind.
Okay, well, that's great. Again, it's Kallen Diggs. He's the author, Reaching the Finish Line. You can get the book and get a bunch of free resources and connect further with Kallen at his website, reachingthefinishline.com. Again, that's reachingthefinishline.com. Kallen, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Michael, it was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And it is Mike Manahan, BizRap Radio. I'm your host. Thank you so much for listening, and we will be back with more on BizRap Radio right after these messages. And welcome back to BizRap Radio. It's your host, Mike Manahan, and thank you so much for staying with us. And if you just joined us, BizRap Radio is, of course, the show all about small business and entrepreneurs. We're here to help small businesses and entrepreneurs, help you run your business, make more money. If you just joined us, if you weren't here for the previous segments, we had Kallen Diggs on. Kallen is an author. His book is Reach the Finish Line. A very interesting guy, helps people, I guess, accomplish their dreams, and there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes we need a little push. We need a coach, if you will. Even professional sports figures who make tens of millions of dollars a year need a coach. They can't do it by themselves. And so we as small business people have to understand that we can't always do everything we want alone. Sometimes having help makes a difference, and if you've got a coach, if you've got someone pushing you, that's a good thing. Now, I came across an article which just absolutely astounded me. Apparently, there is a huge tax scam going on. Fake IRS agents have targeted almost 400,000 people in the U.S. with harassing phone calls demanding payments and threatening jail as part of a huge tax scam that so far has cost the taxpayers tens of millions of dollars. This is just absolutely unbelievable. But I think it's indicative of something. How is it that a fake IRS agent is able to call an individual in our country and extort money out of them with the threat of throwing you in jail or other equally obnoxious penalties? I'm thinking about this. Has anybody read in the newspaper about a Macy's credit scam where the credit department at Macy's is calling people up and threatening to throw them in jail and do other nasty things? No. How about a Target? Hey, anybody aware of a Target credit scam where Target is calling up people and threatening to throw them in jail and harassing them with phone calls? No. Why is it that this particular type of scam only works or only seems to work if it's the IRS calling? That scares me, my friends out there, because it says something. It says something about how the citizens of this country view the IRS. Yeah, and the IRS, I know they spend tens of millions of dollars trying to make their image look good, but there's a lot of people in this country who perceive the IRS to be a real scary bunch of nasty folks, and if that weren't the case, you couldn't operate a scam like this. Imagine you're sitting there, having dinner, your phone rings, you pick up the phone, and this guy says he's from the IRS, you owe a bunch of money, and if you don't pay the money and you don't pay it right away, you're gonna be thrown in jail. I mean, I would be absolutely petrified, but what scares me is I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, this to me would not be a huge shocker, and I'm certainly these people who were taken advantage of by this scam, they probably felt the same way. Yeah, if somebody from Target called me up or somebody from Walmart and said, "Hey, you better pay this bill or we're going to throw you in jail," I'd say, screw you, buddy. I wouldn't believe it for a second. It would be beyond the realm of believability. But for some reason, when somebody who's posing as an IRS agent calls up and threatens you in that way, it seems to be believable. At least it's been believable for some 300, almost 400,000 people who've received these harassing phone calls, and over 3,000 people who've fallen for the ruse and have. This is just since 2013, by the way. This is just a little over a year, and these people have actually paid these fake IRS agents money, one unidentified victim, more than $500,000. Now, my friends, we got a problem in this country. We have a problem when the agency that is supposed to collect the tax, I know they call it the Internal Revenue Service. I got a little bit of a problem with that. To me, revenue is something that you generate. Revenue to me is like, I'm an accountant. Revenue is a sale. That's something you generate by putting together labor and materials and providing a good or a service to a customer with an appropriate markup. That's a sale. That's revenue. I have a hard time calling tax revenue. I guess in an esoteric sense it is revenue, but frankly, it's a tax. And to me, it should be the Internal Tax Service. It should be the organization that basically extracts taxes from the citizens, and that's fine. I agree. We have to have taxes. We got to pay for the Army, the Navy, the Air Force. We have to pay for Medicare and Social Security. We have to pay for a host of government activities that we need government to do. Now, of course, there's always the argument about how much of that do we really need the government to do. I mean, prior to 1980, we did not have a Department of Education in the United States. Jimmy Carter signed it into law. We now have 88 departments within the department. I think it's 88 within the Department of Education. You're spending I think it's close to $100 billion per year. Of course, every state has a Department of Education. Every county has some kind of an education board, and every city has a school board. So why we need the federal government involved in that? That's another that's another question altogether. I don't want to go there right now. I just want to talk about this IRS scam. But I understand we need a collection agency that goes around and collects the taxes that people owe to the government. If the government doesn't collect the taxes, it can't function. And we don't want to be like Greece, where apparently, some huge proportion of the people in Greece never, ever pay their taxes, and there's no effective collection mechanism to make them pay their taxes, which is just very bizarre and astounding in and of itself. But all that being said, I think, we have to have taxes, we have to run the government, that's fine. But really, does the government agency that collects our taxes, do they really have to be so draconian that if some fake IRS agents start making phone calls, they can literally extort people around the country for of tens of millions of dollars by threatening to throw them in jail? And the only way that can work is if it's believable. And it's believable because the people in this country, yes, many people are afraid of the IRS. I think many people are more afraid of the IRS than their local law enforcement agencies. These people have a nasty reputation and I think draconian powers. But that's my take on it. Anyways, if somebody calls you from the IRS purporting to that you owe money and they're going to throw you in jail, beware, it might be fake. It's Mike Manahan, Biz Rap Radio, and we'll be back with more right after these messages. And welcome back to Biz Rap Radio. It's your host, Mike Manahan, and thank you so much for joining me today. We are having just a wonderful show. We had Kallen Diggs on earlier in the show talking about his book, Reach the Finish Line, how he's helping people reach and accomplish their educational and career goals. Talked in the last segment a little bit about this IRS scam. Be careful if you get a call from an IRS inspector. Apparently there's a huge scam going on where these fake IRS agents call you, tell you that you owe the IRS money, and then threaten to throw you in jail unless you pay them. And apparently some 3,000 plus people here in the U.S. have been subject to that particular scam, including one individual who paid more than $500,000. Now, of course, the IRS isn't doing that. This is a scam, and the IRS isn't getting the money. Some crooks are. So be very careful. As much as I like to give the IRS a hard time, the fact is they're not going to be making random phone calls and threatening to throw anybody in jail just like that. We do have due process in this country, believe it or not. They're going to have to go to court to get you in jail. And if they do, very few people actually go to jail for tax problems in this country. And if you do owe the IRS money, as many of us do, and you have a problem paying it, give them a call. Work something out. They'll take payment plans as long as they show that you're as long as you show you're trying and you're making a good effort. You shouldn't really have a problem with our good old friends at the IRS. Anyway, I want to talk in the remaining segment here about crowdfunding. I still get lots of people calling me and emailing me, Mike, what's this crowdfunding? How does it work? And there's still a lot of myths and misunderstandings about it. We have had a couple of people on the show talking about crowdfunding. You can go to bizrapradio.com, check out our previous shows, and maybe learn something about crowdfunding. But I'm going to give you just kind of the very quick summary and perhaps where the confusion stands. Back in 2012, the U.S. government passed the Jobs Act, and the Jobs Act was designed to help spur us out of the recession. And one of the major components of the Jobs Act was the crowdfunding provision that basically would allow small companies to raise money in small amounts from people who are not rich fat cats. I mean, I'm going to use layman's terms here because, the securities laws are such you can go out and raise money from rich old fat cats. Now, there's some tests you have to use to make sure they are rich fat cats, but you can raise money from rich fat cats. What you have been prohibited from doing for an awful long time in this country was raising money from just regular folks. The folks you might very well know. I don't know, let's say you're a member of a church. 400 or 500, 1,000 people in the congregation. Well, if you went around and asked each one for $500 to invest in your company, you probably were breaking securities laws. And you can't just go up and ask anybody to invest in your company. You have to, historically would have had some very personal relationships. And these small investors, it just was not practical to raise money from a large group of small investors. And there's a number of problems with that. First of all, it actually hurts the average everyday Joe because, let's face it, I'd like to get in. I'm sure you would too. We'd like to get in on some of these new startup companies that the rich fat cats make billions of dollars off of, but we can't get in there because it's against the law for them to sell us their stock. So the Jobs Act was enacted in 2012. The idea was it was going to be changes in our securities laws that would make it easier to raise money for small companies, and that would help spur the economy. Well, it's 2015. Quite frankly, most of, at least the critical parts of the Jobs Act are still not in place. You still cannot go out and raise, sell stock in your company to just anybody under the sun in small amounts, $500 or $750. You still cannot do that. However, it's coming. And that's the key. The key is it's supposed to be coming. By the time it comes, of course, the recession will be over. The recession is probably already over, so it really hasn't helped the recession. But it should help small companies. And everybody who's following the crowdfunding subject is very excited about it. So what is available today? What can you do today in terms of crowdfunding? And I'm going to put this in terms of, the average company that's out there. You can crowdfund on what's known as a donation basis. So that's places like Kickstarter and Indiegogo. You put your business concept on there, and you can, you can get donations, or you can promise something in the future that if somebody puts up, $10 or $20 when you start manufacturing or making your product, you'll give them some form of a discount at some point in the future. And some companies have been very successful at raising money that way, in some cases because kind of caught on as a fad or a whim. In other cases, because the founders of those companies had very large networks of friends and associates and people, and perhaps social media, where they were able to tap into their large existing relationships through memberships in organizations or what have you, and encourage those people to go to Indiegogo or Kickstarter and contribute whatever the money was, $50, $100, $500 to their idea and concept. But again, they're not selling stock in their company. This is donation-based. So the people putting up the money have no real recourse if the company never gets off the ground and if they get nothing for it. Or alternatively, they have no recourse if the company is tremendously successful and the owners make, sell out to Google for $1 billion. You're not a shareholder, so you cannot participate in that. All you will ever get is usually it's some promise of a future benefit, either in terms of a discount on the product, or a discount on the service that the company offers. So that's crowdfunding as it stands today. Now, there's one additional component. I'm not going to talk too much about it because it's for people who do want to raise money from those fat cats. That's actually become easier because it used to be you could only raise money from a fat cat that you had a relationship with. Now, under the new rules, it's called 506C. I don't want to get too technical, but on the new rules, you can actually advertise for fat cats. So if you could put an ad in your local newspaper, you could do a radio ad, you could put an ad up on television if you had the money to do that, advertising for fat cats to invest in your business. Now, of course, you're going to have to put together a lot of information to provide to those fat cats to make sure you're protected from a liability standpoint, but you can certainly do that, and that is an option one might consider. But another thing about crowdfunding, I think it has some interesting applications for businesses that might be struggling a little bit, who might want to build stronger customer loyalty. Now think about this. If you're an existing business already, you're already serving customers, and you're more worried about keeping your customers and customer loyalty perhaps than you are about starting a new business, you could still use something similar to this crowdfunding concept in your own business. From a marketing perspective. And you may not call it crowdfunding, but you could easily do something that works the same way. You could call it a membership club. You could call it a frequent customer program. You could call it a buy in advance. But think about this. If you have a product or service that you're selling and you want customer loyalty, if you could get the customer to pay you today for something the customer is going to get from you in the future, then you're kind of guaranteed that customer coming back to you, because the customer's paid now. When he needs your product or service, what is he or she going to do? Going to come back to you for the product or service, right? So think about strategies in marketing your business where you could provide some sort of a future benefit. Perhaps it's a discount. You give a discount to the customer who pays today for something that he or she is going to use down the road. Now, I know a lot of companies out there, small businesses, have frequent customer programs. I know I go get my hair cut, and I have a little card, and I get it stamped, and every 10th stamp or something, I get a free haircut. But, the problem is by the time I go back to that shop again, I've lost that card. So a little coffee shop down the street does the same thing. But if they said to me, you want to know what? You could buy your haircuts for a year. How many times are you going to get your haircut? Mike, well, I'm going to get my haircut, I don't know, once a month. Okay, I tell you what, you normally going to cost you $20 to get your haircut. That's $240 for the year. If you buy all 12 months in advance, we'll give it to you for $180. Now, there's a real benefit here, because first of all, you're going to get that customer coming back into you, so you've tied them in. Secondly, some of those customers may not come back for whatever reasons. I don't know, they move out of town, a whole host of reasons. But you've got that money, which is yours to keep. So think about strategies of pre-selling, much like Indiegogo and Kickstarter does. You give the customers a promise of something they're going to get in the future for money from those people today. And I think you could use the same thing in your businesses as a fairly astute marketing strategy. Might be something you want to consider doing. And by the way, if you do want to raise money in a bigger way, definitely check out Indiegogo and Kickstarter. It's not easy. Not everybody who signs up raises money. But if you do have a following, if you do have a group that you can engage with, maybe it's worthwhile to give it a try. It's BizRap Radio. Here at BizRap Radio, we believe we can fix the United States of America through a fundamental concept that individuals pursuing their own economic interests in free markets will create more prosperity for more people than can ever be achieved through government regulations and a planned economy. BizRap Radio, fixing America through individual economic freedom. I'm your host, Mike Manahan. We will be back again with another edition of BizRap Radio next week.